The quantum plasma drive let out another horrible screech that made everyone aboard the Eternal Dawn cover their ears. Empress Vara pressed her clawed hands against her temples as the sound cut through the ship's hull like a dying animal. For 6 months now, her flagship had been stuck in the same spot in space, unable to move without risking complete destruction. "Report," she commanded, her voice sharp with frustration. Chief Engineer Nix stepped forward, his blue skin pale with worry. "Your Majesty, the 28th Specialist has failed. The Crystalline Collective's Master Engineer departed this morning. He said the problem violates the basic laws of physics and cannot be solved." Vara's eyes flashed with anger. 28 engineers. 28 of the galaxy's most brilliant minds from 12 different species. All of them had promised to fix her ship, and all of them had failed miserably. The problem seemed simple enough on the surface. The ship's main engine had developed what the experts called a resonance cascade failure. But this wasn't any ordinary malfunction. The quantum plasma core was doing something that should have been impossible. It was overheating and freezing at the same time. Energy was flowing in perfect loops that created power, but also destroyed it instantly. The whole system was stuck between two states that couldn't exist together. "Tell me again what the Manthari." "Crystal Singers tried," Vara said, pacing across the engine room floor. "They attempted harmonic recalibration, Your Majesty. Their theory was that the engine's frequency needed adjustment. They sang for 3 weeks straight, creating sound patterns. That should have fixed the resonance. Instead, the problem got worse." Vara nodded grimly. She remembered that disaster. The Crystal Singers' efforts had caused the engine to emit a noise so terrible that half the crew had to be treated for hearing damage. And the robotic collective? They sent their most advanced AI systems, machines that could process 1 million calculations per second. They analyzed every possible variable and created perfect mathematical models. But when they tried to implement their solution, the engine rejected their commands entirely. The AI systems couldn't understand why their perfect calculations failed. The Empress walked over to the engine core, staring at the massive device that had once been the pride of the Imperial fleet. Now it looked like a sick animal, with warning lights flashing red and yellow across its surface. Steam and frost appeared, and disappeared randomly, defying all logic. What about the gaseous Windari? They claimed their molecular expertise would solve everything. Nix's shoulders sagged. They tried to restructure the quantum plasma at the atomic level. For a moment, we thought they had succeeded. The engine stabilized for exactly 47 seconds. Then it began oscillating even more violently than before. The lead Windari engineer said the atoms themselves were refusing to cooperate. Vara clenched her fists. This was impossible. Her ship was the most advanced vessel in the known galaxy. It had cost more resources than some planets produced in a decade. The engine was based on technology that had worked perfectly for over 200 years. Yet now it sat broken, and no one could fix it. The political situation made everything worse. The peace negotiations with the Outer Rim worlds were supposed to have happened 4 months ago. Every day of delay made war more likely. Her enemies were already whispering that the great Empress couldn't even keep her own ship running. Some were openly questioning whether she was fit to rule. "What did the techno-priests of Meridian say when they left?" Vara asked. They claimed the engine had been cursed by dark technology. They performed cleansing rituals for 2 weeks, burning sacred oils and chanting ancient prayers. When that failed, they declared the ship beyond redemption and suggested we abandon it. Vara almost laughed at the absurdity. Cursed technology, as if machines could be haunted by evil spirits. And the others? The Silicon Valley Collective? The quantum theorists from Alpha Prime? All failures, Your Majesty. Each group tried a different approach. Some focused on the quantum mechanics. Others attacked the plasma generation systems. A few attempted to replace the entire core with new technology. Nothing worked. In fact, most of their attempts made the problem worse. The Empress turned away from the engine and faced her chief engineer. "Nix, in your professional opinion, what is happening here?" The blue-skinned alien hesitated. "Your Majesty, I've worked with engines for 40 years. I've never seen anything like this. The system appears to be caught in an impossible state. It's as if the engine is trying to exist in two different realities at the same time. Our most advanced theories can't explain it, and our best technology can't fix it." Vara nodded slowly. She had suspected as much. This wasn't just a mechanical failure. This was something beyond current understanding. How long before the engine destroys itself completely? "Hard to say, Your Majesty. Could be days, could be years. But every failed repair attempt seems to make it more unstable. If we keep trying, the same theoretical approaches, we might trigger a cascade failure that destroys the entire ship." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. Outside the viewports, she could see the emergency fleet that had been sent to protect her disabled flagship. Dozens of smaller ships maintaining a safe distance, ready to evacuate her if the worst happened. The sight filled her with rage. "Send a message to every world in the galaxy," she finally said. "Make it a general broadcast on all channels." "What? Message, Your Majesty?" Vara's voice grew cold and dangerous. "Tell them this. The Galactic Empire challenges any species that claims superiority in technology and engineering. Our greatest minds have failed to solve this problem. If any race believes they are truly advanced, let them prove it. Fix our ship, and they will. Be rewarded with mining rights to 3 pristine worlds. Fail, and they will be banned from all Imperial space." Nix looked shocked. "Your Majesty, that's quite a risk. What if someone actually succeeds? Then they will have earned their reward," Vara replied. "But I don't expect success. This challenge will expose the limits of so-called advanced civilizations. When everyone fails, no one can question the difficulty of our situation." As Nix hurried away to send the message, Vara remained in the engine room, listening to the horrible sounds of her dying ship. She had no idea that halfway across the galaxy, a simple maintenance worker was about to see her challenge and think it looked like a problem he had solved before. Oil stains covered Tom Riley's work clothes as he crawled under his daughter's broken hoverbike. The garage smelled like metal shavings and old grease, with tools scattered across every available surface. Amy sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, holding a flashlight steady while her father worked. "The anti-gravity coil is making that weird humming sound again," Amy said, adjusting her position to get a better angle with the light. "I hear it," Tom replied, his voice muffled from underneath the small vehicle. "Sounds like the harmonics are off. Probably needs a simple recalibration." Tom had been fixing things for as long as he could remember. His father had been a mechanic, and his grandfather before that. While other kids played video games, Tom learned how to take apart engines and put them back together. He never went to university like some of his friends. Instead, he went straight to technical college and then into the workforce. Life on Haven's Rest wasn't easy for a single father. Tom worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. During the day, he maintained the colony's atmospheric processors. In the sea, evenings, he repaired personal vehicles and household appliances. On weekends, he fixed whatever people brought to his garage. Nothing fancy, just honest work that kept food on the table and clothes on Amy's back. "Dad, why does everything break?" Amy asked, swinging her legs back and forth. "Things break because they get used," Tom explained, adjusting a connection inside the hoverbike. "When something works hard every day, parts wear out. It's natural. The trick is learning how to fix them so they work even better than before." Amy nodded seriously. At 8 years old, she already understood that her father could fix almost anything. Last month, when the colony's main atmospheric processor failed, 3 corporate engineering teams had spent weeks trying to repair it. Tom had looked at the problem for 2 hours and found the solution, a simple feedback loop in the control system that everyone else had missed. The garage's communication terminal chimed, indicating an incoming transmission. Tom ignored it at first. He got calls all day from people needing repairs. But the chime kept repeating, which meant it was a priority broadcast. "Amy, can you check what that message is about?" Tom asked, his hands still busy with the hoverbike's anti-gravity coil. Amy jumped up and ran to the terminal. The screen flickered to life, showing the official seal of the Galactic Empire. A formal announcer's voice filled the garage. By order of Her Imperial Majesty Empress Vara, the following challenge is issued to all civilizations in known space. The Imperial flagship Eternal Dawn has suffered a critical engine failure that has defeated 28 of the galaxy's most brilliant engineers. Amy's eyes grew wide as she listened to the broadcast. The message described a quantum plasma drive caught in an impossible resonance cascade, with energy loops that violated basic physics. The challenge offered incredible rewards for success and severe penalties for failure. "Dad, you should hear this," Amy called out. "I'm busy, sweetie. Can you just tell me what it's about?" "Some Empress lady has a broken spaceship. Really smart aliens couldn't fix it. She's offering 3 whole planets to whoever can make it work again." Tom laughed from under the hoverbike. 3 planets? That sounds like a scam, Amy. Nobody gives away planets for fixing a ship. "But Dad, look at the technical specifications they're broadcasting. Doesn't this sound like something you've seen before?" Tom sighed and slid out from under the hoverbike, wiping his hands on an old rag. He walked over to the terminal, expecting to see some obvious hoax or advertisement. Instead, he found himself looking at detailed engineering diagrams of the most advanced engine he had ever seen. The quantum plasma drive was incredibly complex, but the problem description made Tom frown thoughtfully. A resonance cascade that created energy loops while simultaneously overheating and freezing. Energy flowing in patterns that fed back on themselves. The system caught between 2 stable states that couldn't coexist. "This looks like a feedback problem," Tom said quietly, studying the diagrams. "What kind of feedback problem?" Amy asked, climbing onto his lap to get a better view. "Remember when I fixed the atmospheric processor last month? It was doing something similar, not exactly the same, but close. The control system was trying to be in 2 different modes at once. Hot and cold, on and off, working and broken. Everyone else was trying to force it into one state or the other. What did you do?" "I gave it a way to switch back and forth safely. Like a relief valve that lets pressure out when things get too intense. Sometimes machines need to find their own balance. Instead of being forced into perfect behavior." Amy looked at the screen again, then back at her father. "Dad, I think you should try to fix their spaceship." Tom almost laughed again, but something in his daughter's serious expression stopped him. Amy had watched him solve problems that stumped much more educated people. She had seen him fix things that others said were impossible to repair. Maybe she saw something he was missing. "Amy, this is a spaceship belonging to an Empress. The galaxy's smartest engineers have already tried to fix it. I just repair hoverbikes and air processors. But you're really good at fixing things that are stuck between 2 states," Amy insisted. "Remember the mining facility power grid that kept cycling between overload and shutdown? You fixed that when the corporate team gave up." Tom looked at the technical specifications again. The more he studied them, the more familiar the problem seemed. Not the specific technology, but the pattern of the failure. He had seen this kind of issue before, just on a smaller scale with simpler equipment. "Even if I wanted to try," Tom said. "They'd never let someone like me near an Imperial flagship. Look at the list of engineers who already failed. PhDs in quantum mechanics, AI, specialists, molecular engineers. I barely finished technical college." "But, Dad, you know something they don't know." "What's that?" Amy pointed at the diagrams on the screen. "You know how to fix broken things that still need to work. All those smart people probably tried to make it perfect, but you know how to make things work even when they're not perfect." Tom stared at his 8-year-old daughter, amazed by her insight. She was right. The failed engineers had probably approached the problem from a theoretical perspective, trying to eliminate the resonance cascade completely. But what if the cascade wasn't something to be eliminated? What if it was something to be managed? "You really think I should apply?" Tom asked. Amy nodded enthusiastically. "What's the worst that could happen? They say no and we go back to fixing hoverbikes. But what if you can really help them?" Tom looked around his cluttered garage, then back at the Imperial challenge on the screen. It was completely crazy. A maintenance worker from a small colony world trying to solve a problem that had stumped the galaxy's best minds. But Amy was right about one thing. He did know how to fix broken things that still needed to work. "All right," Tom said finally. "Let's send in an application. But don't get your hopes up, sweetie. They'll probably just ignore it." Amy hugged him tightly. "They won't ignore it, Dad. You're going to fix their spaceship, and then everyone will know how amazing you are." As Tom began drafting his application, he had no idea that his simple, practical approach was exactly what the Eternal Dawn needed. Tom's hands shook slightly as he stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the Eternal Dawn. The Imperial flagship was massive beyond anything he had ever imagined. Corridors stretched in every direction, filled with crew members from dozens of different alien species. The walls seemed to glow with their own inner light, and the air hummed with the power of advanced technology. A tall, blue-skinned alien approached him with obvious reluctance. "You must be the human maintenance worker," the alien said, making the word maintenance sound like an insult. "I am Chief Engineer Nix. Her Majesty has ordered me to provide you with access to the engine room." "Thank you," Tom replied, carrying his simple toolbox. Compared to the sophisticated equipment he had seen other specialists bring aboard, his collection of basic tools looked pathetic. "I should warn you," Nix continued as they walked, "that 28 highly qualified engineers have already attempted this repair. These were not ordinary technicians. They included quantum physicists, AI specialists, molecular engineers, and harmonic theorists. If they could not solve the problem, I find it highly unlikely that a human mechanic can succeed." Tom finished. "Yeah, I get that a lot." They entered the engine room, and Tom stopped in amazement. The quantum plasma drive was enormous, rising 3 stories high and stretching the length of a city block. Warning lights flashed across its surface in complex patterns. The air around it shimmered with heat distortion, while frost formed on nearby surfaces at the same time. "This is the problem," Nix said, gesturing toward the massive engine. "As you can see, it appears to be generating extreme heat and extreme cold simultaneously. The energy patterns create perfect loops that produce power, while also consuming it instantly. Our best theorists cannot explain how this is possible." Tom set down his toolbox and walked around the engine, looking at it from different angles. The other engineers had focused on the theoretical aspects of the failure, but Tom saw something else. He saw a machine that was trying to work despite being broken. "Can you show me the maintenance records?" Tom asked. Nix looked surprised. "Maintenance? Records?" The previous engineers were more interested in quantum field equations and harmonic resonance patterns. "I'd like to see when this engine was last serviced and what kind of regular maintenance it receives." After some searching, Nix produced a datapad with the maintenance logs. Tom sat on a nearby crate and read through months of routine service reports. The picture that emerged was troubling. "When was the last time someone cleaned the plasma injectors?" Tom asked. "Cleaned them?" Nix looked confused. "This is a quantum plasma drive, not a simple combustion engine. The plasma streams are automatically purified at the molecular level." "What about the resonance dampeners? Are they calibrated regularly?" "The dampeners are controlled by AI systems that maintain perfect calibration at all times." Tom nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand the problem. The Eternal Dawn's engine was so advanced that nobody performed basic maintenance on it anymore. Everything was automated, controlled by computers that maintained theoretical perfection. But sometimes, theoretical perfection wasn't the same as practical reality. "Can you tell me exactly what happened when the engine first started malfunctioning?" Tom asked. Nix consulted his records. "The failure began during a routine hyperspace jump. The engine was performing normally, then suddenly developed this resonance cascade. The AI systems detected the problem immediately and began trying to correct it. But their corrections seemed to make the situation worse." "The AI systems are still trying to fix it?" "Of course. They run constant diagnostic routines and apply corrections every few seconds." Tom walked back to the engine and listened carefully. Beneath the obvious sounds of the malfunctioning drive, he could hear something else, a subtle pattern of adjustments and counter-adjustments. The AI systems were fighting the resonance cascade, but their efforts were actually feeding the problem. "I need you to disconnect the AI control systems," Tom said. Nick stared at him in shock. "Disconnect them? That's impossible. The AI systems prevent the engine from destroying itself. Without computer control, the quantum plasma drive would be completely unstable." "It's already unstable," Tom pointed out. "The AI systems are trying to solve the problem by forcing the engine into a perfect state. But the engine can't reach that perfect state right now. So the computers keep trying harder and harder, which makes the resonance cascade worse." "That's a very simplified view of a complex quantum mechanical system," Nick said stiffly. "Maybe," Tom replied. "But I've seen this pattern before. Not with quantum drives, but with other machines. Sometimes the control system becomes part of the problem instead of part of the solution." Tom opened his toolbox and pulled out a simple scanner, the kind used to diagnose problems with basic electronic equipment. Nix watched in disbelief as the human began taking readings from various parts of the massive engine. "What are you looking for?" Nix asked. "Patterns," Tom said, moving his scanner along the engine's outer casing. "Every machine has a rhythm when it's working properly. When something breaks, the rhythm changes. I'm trying to figure out what rhythm this engine wants to follow." After an hour of scanning and listening, Tom began to see the pattern. The quantum plasma drive was trying to oscillate between its two impossible states. The AI systems kept trying to stop the oscillation, but that was exactly the wrong approach. The engine needed to oscillate. It just needed a safe way to do it. "I think I understand what happened," Tom said finally. "Something damaged the engine's natural rhythm during that hyperspace jump. Maybe a small component failed or a connection came loose. Nothing major, but enough to throw off the balance. The AI systems detected the irregularity and tried to compensate, but their compensation created feedback loops that made the problem worse." "So what do you propose?" Nix asked, clearly skeptical. "I want to give the engine what it's asking for. Let it oscillate between the two states, but provide a safe pathway for the excess energy, like a pressure relief valve, but for quantum energy." "That's not how quantum plasma drives work," Nix protested. "You can't just install crude mechanical solutions on advanced technology." "Why not?" Tom asked. "A quantum plasma drive is still a machine. It takes energy in, processes it, and sends it out. The quantum part makes it more efficient, but it doesn't change the basic principles." Tom began sketching his proposed solution on a piece of paper from his toolbox. It was remarkably simple compared to the complex theoretical approaches the previous engineers had attempted. Instead of trying to eliminate the resonance cascade, he wanted to give it a controlled outlet. "You want to use components from the waste recycling system?" Nix asked, looking at the sketch in horror. "Those components can handle variable energy, flows and sudden pressure changes," Tom explained. "They're designed to process unpredictable inputs and turn them into stable outputs. That's exactly what we need." "This is technological barbarism," Nix muttered. "Maybe," Tom said with a shrug, "but barbarism that works is better than sophistication that doesn't." As Tom continued explaining his plan, he noticed other crew members gathering around to listen. Word was spreading through the ship that the human had a completely different approach to the problem. Some looked curious. Others seemed amused by his simple ideas, but a few, including some of the ship's more experienced technicians, were nodding thoughtfully. "You really think this crude solution will work where our most advanced theories have failed?" Nix asked. Tom looked at the massive, malfunctioning engine, then back at his simple sketch. "I don't know if it will work," he admitted. "But I know that fighting against what a machine wants to do is usually the wrong approach. Sometimes you have to work with the problem instead of against it. And if you're wrong, if your modifications destroy the engine completely," Tom considered this seriously, "then you'll be no worse off than you are now. But if I'm right, your ship will be flying again within a few days." As Tom began gathering the components he would need for his unconventional repair, he could feel the skeptical eyes of the entire crew watching him. He was about to attempt something that went against everything the galaxy's most advanced civilizations believed about technology and engineering. But he had learned long ago that machines didn't care about theories. They only cared about what actually worked. Tom's modifications to the Eternal Dawn's engine room looked like organized chaos. Pipes and cables ran in directions that made no sense to anyone familiar with Imperial engineering standards. Components from the waste recycling system sat next to quantum field generators. Warning signs in 17 different languages covered improvised connections that violated every safety protocol in the book. "This is madness," Dr. Nix muttered, watching Tom crawl through a maintenance tunnel with a wrench in his teeth and a bundle of cables over his shoulder. "He's turning our pristine engine room into some kind of primitive workshop." But despite his complaints, Nix found himself fascinated by Tom's methods. The human didn't work from blueprints or computer models. Instead, he seemed to listen to the engine, feeling for vibrations, and watching how different components reacted to each other. When something didn't feel right, he would adjust it until it did. "Hand me that pressure coupling," Tom called out, pointing to a component that had been salvaged from the ship's kitchen systems. "You cannot be serious," Dr. Nix protested. "That component is designed to regulate steam pressure for food preparation. It has no place in a quantum plasma drive." "It can handle variable pressure and rapid changes in energy flow," Tom replied, crawling back out of the tunnel. "That's exactly what we need. The quantum part doesn't matter if the basic mechanical principles are wrong." Tom's approach horrified the sophisticated engineering staff, but it also produced results that none of them could ignore. As he installed his makeshift pressure relief system, the engine's behavior began to change. The horrible screeching sounds that had plagued the ship for months became quieter and more regular. The random appearance of steam and frost started, following predictable patterns. "How is he doing this?" whispered one of the junior engineers, a crystalline being whose species was known for mathematical precision. "He's treating the engine like a living thing," observed the ship's medical officer, Dr. Kara. "Instead of trying to control every variable, he's letting it find its own balance." Tom's most controversial modification involved the ship's artificial gravity system. He had somehow connected the gravity generators to the quantum plasma drive, using the gravitational fields to create stability buffers around the engine core. "This violates 17 different safety regulations," Nix protested. "If the gravity fields interact with the plasma streams, the entire ship could be torn apart." "The gravity fields are already interacting with the plasma streams," Tom pointed out, adjusting a connection with a simple hand tool. "They have been for months. I'm just giving them a way to interact safely instead of chaotically." To everyone's amazement, Tom's gravity modifications worked. The resonance cascade began stabilizing as the artificial gravity fields absorbed and redirected excess energy. What had seemed like dangerous improvisation was actually elegant engineering. The breakthrough came when Tom connected the life support system to his growing network of improvised solutions. The ship's atmosphere recycling system, which was designed to maintain perfect environmental balance throughout the vessel, became part of the engine's regulation mechanism. "You're using our breathing air as a dampening field?" Dr. Nix asked in disbelief. "The atmosphere already has the right pressure and temperature characteristics," Tom explained, wiping grease from his hands. "Plus, it's constantly circulating throughout the ship. Why build a separate dampening system when we already have one that works perfectly?" As Tom worked, something remarkable began happening among the crew. Engineers who had initially dismissed him as a primitive began paying attention to his methods. They watched him solve complex problems with simple tools, finding elegant solutions in unexpected places. "He doesn't think like we do," observed Engineer Tala, a member of the gaseous Windari species. "We approach problems by analyzing them to death. He approaches them by understanding what they want to accomplish." The ship's AI systems presented Tom's biggest challenge. Every time he made an adjustment, the computers tried to correct his work, undoing his modifications and returning the engine to its previous state of theoretical perfection. "Can we shut down the AI control systems temporarily?" Tom asked. "Absolutely not," Dr. Nix replied firmly. "Those systems prevent catastrophic failure. Without them, any mistake could destroy the entire ship." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "Then I need to teach the AI systems to work with my modifications instead of against them." What followed was the strangest technical consultation in Imperial history. Tom sat in front of the main computer terminal, explaining his repair philosophy to artificial intelligences that processed information millions of times faster than any biological brain. "The engine wants to oscillate," Tom told the computers. "Your job isn't to stop the oscillation. Your job is to keep it within safe parameters. Think of yourselves as guides instead of controllers." The AI systems processed this request for several minutes before responding. They had been programmed to maintain perfect stability, not to manage controlled instability. Tom's approach required them to fundamentally change their basic operating principles. "Can you do that?" Tom asked. "We can attempt this modification to our operational parameters," the lead AI responded. "However, we must warn you that this approach contradicts established engineering doctrine." "Established engineering doctrine hasn't been working," Tom pointed out. "Sometimes you have to try something new." Over the next 2 days, Tom continued his unconventional repairs, while the AI system slowly adapted to his methods. The ship's crew watched in fascination as the humans' primitive approach began taming the impossible engine failure. The quantum plasma drive still oscillated between its two incompatible states, but now it did so in a controlled manner. Tom's pressure relief systems channeled excess energy safely away from critical components. His gravity modifications created stability fields that absorbed dangerous resonance spikes. Most importantly, his integration of existing ship systems meant that the engine was now supported by the entire vessel instead of fighting against it. "I don't understand how this is working," Dr. Nix admitted, staring at readings that showed steady improvement in all engine parameters. "It's working because he's not trying to fight the problem," Dr. Kara observed. He's working with it. The engine was trying to heal itself all along. We just needed someone who knew how to listen. As Tom made his final adjustments using a combination of high-tech sensors and simple mechanical intuition, the engine room fell silent for the first time in months. The quantum plasma drive hummed quietly, its oscillations smooth and regular. All the warning lights had changed from red to green. "Try starting the engines," Tom suggested. Dr. Nix hesitated, then activated the engine control systems. The Eternal Dawn shuddered slightly as its massive drives came online. But instead of the grinding, screeching chaos that had plagued the ship for months, the engines produced a smooth, powerful hum. "Impossible," Dr. Nix whispered, staring at his instruments. "The engine is not only stable, it's operating at 112% of design efficiency." Tom smiled, closing his toolbox. "Sometimes when you fix something properly, it works better than it did when it was new. The engine learned how to handle stress more effectively. My modifications just gave it the tools to do what it wanted to do all along." As word spread through the ship that the impossible repair had been completed, crew members began gathering in the engine room to see the miracle for themselves. They looked at Tom's crude modifications with new understanding, realizing that they had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. Empress Vara stood in the engine room of her flagship, listening to the steady, powerful hum of machinery that had been silent for 6 months. The quantum plasma drive operated with a smoothness that surpassed its original design specifications. Warning lights glowed green across every display panel. The impossible resonance cascade had been tamed, controlled, and transformed into a source of enhanced efficiency. "Explain to me once more how this human accomplished what 28 specialists could not," she commanded, her voice filled with wonder rather than anger. Dr. Nix, still struggling to accept what he had witnessed, gestured toward Tom's improvised modifications. "Your Majesty," he approached the problem from a completely different perspective. While our specialists tried to eliminate the resonance cascade, he chose to work with it. He gave the engine what it needed instead of forcing it to behave according to theoretical models. Tom stood quietly nearby, his simple toolbox at his feet, still wearing the same oil-stained work clothes he had arrived in. He looked uncomfortable, with all the attention, frequently glancing toward the transport shuttle that would take him home to Amy. "These modifications," the Empress said, studying the network of improvised connections that now formed an integral part of her ship's systems. "They appear crude, yet they function with remarkable elegance. How did you know this approach would succeed?" "I didn't know it would work," Tom replied honestly, "but I recognized the pattern. Machines sometimes get stuck between two states when their control systems become too rigid. The solution isn't to force them into one state or the other. You have to give them a way to move safely between both states." "And where did you learn this technique?" Tom shrugged. "From fixing broken things for 15 years. Air processors, water pumps, hover bikes, mining equipment. When something breaks but still needs to work, you learn to be creative with solutions." Empress Vara walked slowly around the engine room, observing how Tom's modifications had integrated with her ship's existing systems. The waste recycling components that Dr. Nix had called technological barbarism now regulated energy flows with perfect precision. The kitchen pressure couplings maintained stability under conditions that had defeated quantum field generators. Most remarkably, the ship's life support system had become part of the engine's control network, creating a harmony between machine and environment that her most advanced engineers had never imagined. "Dr. Nix," the Empress said, "what is the current efficiency rating of our engines?" 114% of original specifications, Your Majesty. The engine is not only repaired, it's performing better than when it was first installed. The modifications have eliminated several minor inefficiencies that we never knew existed. How is this possible? Tom stepped forward. When you fix something that's been broken, you often discover ways to make it work better. The engine was fighting against its own control systems for months. That struggle taught it how to handle stress more effectively. My modifications just gave it the tools to use what it had learned. The Empress turned to face Tom directly. The Galactic Empire owes you a tremendous debt. You have succeeded where our most brilliant minds failed. Name your reward, and it shall be yours. Worlds, titles, positions of power, anything within my ability to grant. Tom looked uncomfortable. Your Majesty, I appreciate the offer, but I just want to go home to my daughter. She's probably wondering why I've been gone so long. Surely you desire something more than a simple return to your previous life. You have demonstrated abilities that could benefit the entire galaxy. I offer you the position of Chief Engineer of the Imperial Fleet. You would command resources beyond imagination and solve problems that affect billions of lives. That's very generous, Tom replied, but I'm not qualified for a position like that. I fix things when they break, but I'm not a leader or a manager. Besides, Amy needs me at home. She's only 8 years old, and I'm all the family she has. The Empress studied Tom with new understanding. Here was a being who had accomplished the impossible, yet remained focused on what truly mattered to him. His priorities were not power or recognition, but responsibility and love. Then at least accept compensation for your services, she insisted. The mining rights to 3 worlds, as promised in my challenge. Tom shook his head. I don't need 3 worlds, Your Majesty. Maybe just enough credits to pay for Amy's education and fix up our garage a bit. Nothing fancy. Dr. Nick stepped forward, looking troubled. Your Majesty, if I may speak freely, this human has revealed something troubling about our approach to technology. We have become so focused on theoretical perfection that we have forgotten practical wisdom. Explain, the Empress commanded. Our most advanced civilizations pursue complexity for its own sake. We design systems that are theoretically flawless but practically fragile. This human showed us that true engineering wisdom lies in creating things that work reliably under real-world conditions, not just in laboratory simulations. The ship's medical officer, Dr. Kara, joined the conversation. I've been thinking about this as well, Your Majesty. We witnessed something unprecedented here. A being who succeeded not despite his limitations, but because of his approach to those limitations. He didn't try to be smarter than the problem. He tried to understand what the problem needed. Tom looked around at the assembled aliens, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with their analysis. I just fixed a broken engine. It's not that complicated. But it is complicated, the Empress replied. What you accomplished here challenges our fundamental assumptions about intelligence, expertise, and problem-solving. You have shown us that sometimes the most sophisticated approach is the wrong approach. She turned to address her crew. For too long, our civilizations have equated advancement with complexity. We have built machines so sophisticated that we forgot how to truly understand them. This human reminded us that at their core, all machines are simply tools designed to accomplish specific tasks. When we lose sight of those basic purposes, we lose the ability to fix them when they break. Tom picked up his toolbox, eager to end the philosophical discussion and return home. Your Majesty, I really appreciate the recognition, but I need to get back to Haven's Rest. Amy's hoverbike still needs some adjustments, and I promised Mrs. Chen I'd look at her food processor tomorrow. The Empress smiled, the expression that few beings in the galaxy had ever seen. Very well, but I insist on providing you with a standing invitation. Whenever the Empire encounters problems that defeat our conventional wisdom, we will contact you, not as an employee or subject, but as a consultant who can offer a different perspective. As long as the jobs don't take too long, Tom agreed. I've got responsibilities at home. As Tom prepared to board his transport shuttle, the crew of the Eternal Dawn gathered to see him off. Many of them had initially dismissed him as a primitive, but now they understood that they had witnessed something remarkable. A simple maintenance worker had succeeded where the galaxy's greatest minds had failed, not through superior intelligence or advanced technology, but through practical wisdom and an understanding of how things actually work. Dr. Nix approached Tom as he reached the shuttle door. "I owe you an apology," the chief engineer said. "I was arrogant and dismissive. You taught me something important about engineering that I had forgotten." "What's that?" Tom asked. "That machines are not just collections of components and theories. They are tools with purposes. When we remember their purposes, fixing them becomes much simpler." Tom smiled and shook the alien's hand. "Just remember that the next time something breaks, ask yourself what the machine is trying to accomplish, not just what's wrong with it." As the shuttle departed the Eternal Dawn, Tom settled back in his seat and thought about Amy waiting for him at home. She would want to hear every detail of his adventure, and he would tell her how her confidence in him had made all the difference. Back on the Imperial flagship, Empress Vera stood in her perfectly functioning engine room, listening to the steady hum of machinery that now worked better than ever. She had learned something important about her empire and the galaxy beyond it. True advancement didn't always come from the most sophisticated civilizations or the most educated minds. Sometimes it came from practical wisdom, from beings who understood that the best solutions were often the simplest ones. 3 days later, Tom was back in his garage on Haven's Rest, lying under Amy's hoverbike and listening to her chatter about her school projects. The anti-gravity coil hummed smoothly now, perfectly calibrated and ready for years of reliable service. "Dad," Amy said, "are you going to fix more spaceships?" "Maybe," Tom replied, adjusting a final connection. "But only if they really need it, and only if it doesn't keep me away from home too long." "Good," Amy said, satisfied, "because Mrs. Chen's food processor is making that weird noise again, and I told her you'd definitely be able to fix it." Tom laughed, crawling out from under the hoverbike and wiping his hands on an old rag. "Of course you did. Well, broken things don't fix themselves." As he looked around his cluttered garage, filled with tools and spare parts and projects waiting for attention, Tom felt completely content. The galaxy might have bigger problems and more sophisticated technology, but his corner of it ran smoothly because he understood a simple truth. Everything breaks eventually, and someone has to know how to fix it. Outside, the stars shone down, on Haven's Rest, and somewhere among them, the Eternal Dawn flew through space with engines that hummed like a contented cat, carrying the knowledge that sometimes the most important solutions come from the most unexpected places.